Good morning. As often is the case, in the morning, especially for me, I am gearing up to write something. And I thought that I would make a post about my contemplative writing process. So, one thing that I was thinking about is that there's always like something deeper in a subject. Like if you have a prompt for writing, you might think that you wrote your last thing about a subject, but then you can almost always, look a little deeper and write one more thing about it. Actually, maybe write a whole book more about it. And so the prompt this week for my group that I'm in, my writing group, is to think about risk taking, which is a subject that I have written maybe 2 words on since we got that assignment, since we gave ourselves that assignment. We have a cool little writing group here that we do over Zoom. Anyway, so yeah, I only wrote a little bit on that subject, but and so I kind of got to the end of all my thoughts on it, but this is just like a reminder to myself and to everyone who watches this that there's always more to think on a subject. So, contemplative writing is something that I've studied before a little bit. And it kind of, in contemplative writing class, I learned that you can always go deeper on these subjects. So, that we're thinking about in writing. So, the reason that I was making this video, I started off thinking that I would read a news story that I found on, actually, it's on npr.org. It interested me a lot, and sometimes I like to read aloud things that I really want to get in my brain. But that's what I'm going to do at the end of this discussion, because and the story will be on your gut microbes may influence how you handle stress, which was a story that just came out this morning, and so they don't have it in audio available on the website yet. But I found that really interesting because I've seen that happen in my life, that my over of my history, of my medical history, I look back at it and I think, wow, my gut microbiome, I'm pretty sure, really affected my mental health, because when I started getting diagnosed with the illness that I have when I was very young, I had just like a month before that, or 2 or 3, the summer before that, I had Lyme's disease. And when I had Lyme disease, I had to take a month-long course of antibiotic. And that, if you take a month course of antibiotic, it's not good for your stomach gut biome. Even if you eat yogurt every single day, it can be bad for your gut microbiome, because um, you're taking antibiotics and they're hurting the bacteria in your gut that is healthy. Well, so right after that happened with the Lyme disease and the antibiotic, I ended up having a major episode that I had never had anything like that before. And so I always thought that it was the Lyme that led to my mental illness, but looking at it a different angle, I'm sure that it was the medicine for the Lyme that led to my mental illness, although both of them have neurological effects. So, the other thing that I really wanted to talk about this morning, that I was going to talk about before I read that article, though, is that say something about how I think that it would be cool if somebody who watched this who wanted to make YouTube videos, like I have a friend who wants to make YouTube videos more. And I just kind of wanted to give some words of advice to my friend who wants to make videos more, and maybe it will help someone else. So, if you want to make more YouTube videos, this is my advice, and it might be a little different than most advice on this subject. If you want to make more YouTube videos, or if you want to start putting out YouTube videos, my advice to you is take the pressure all the way off, depressure, because you don't have to have everything perfect. Take the whole perfectionism thing and throw it out the window. A lot of people are like putting out advice on YouTube videos, and they make me think that, like, if I did that, I would have to have a very perfected product before I put it out for people. And I really think that if you're going to put out YouTube videos, that's not something that people need. I think very strongly, as you can see evidenced by my videos on YouTube, that you can just put out little segments from your life. I mean, kind of in the same vein of thinking as vlogging. You can put out a video of your favorite tree blowing in the wind. You can put out a video that is completely unedited, a long video just of your favorite thing that you like to do that week. You can go grocery shopping in the vlog, you can do all sorts of things, but I just think that people just love watching videos, and if you're loving what you're making, it doesn't have to be perfect at all. That is my advice on YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and read that gut microbiome article. So this is a few different subjects all in one video. Anyways, your gut microbes may influence how you handle stress, by Will Stone. And there's an illustration of the human microbiome. The bacteria in our gut may influence our mental health, research finds. The gut microbiome, the ecosystem of tiny organisms inside all of us, has emerged as fertile new territory for studying a range of psychiatric conditions and neurological diseases, just like I just said. Research has demonstrated the brain and gut are constant communication, and that changes in the microbiome are linked to mood and mental health. Now, a study published this month in Nature Mental Health finds that distinct biological signatures in microbiome of people who are highly resilient in the face of stressful events. The accuracy with which these patterns emerged was really amazing, says Arfana Church, the neuroscientist at UCLA's Goodman Luskin Microbiome Center, who led the new study. The research is a jumping off point for the human studies that some research believe could ultimately lead to treatments. It may also point to the biomarkers in the microbiome that help guide decisions around treatment and mental health. Resilience linked, resilience linked to anti-inflammatory microbes. For their analysis, Church and her team separated 116 adults without a mental health diagnosis and two groups based on how they scored on a scale of psychological resilience. Next, they sifted through a huge amount of data that gathered from brain imaging, stool samples, and psychological questionnaires that fed into the machine learning model to find patterns. The analysis of gene activity, metabolites, and other data came up with several associations in the high resilience group. In the brain, there was an increased feature related to improved emotional regulation and cognition. Think about this frontal part of your brain being like the brakes, said Church. The high resilient individuals had efficient brakes and less of the super stress response. Then they delved into the microbiome, not looking at the abundance of different microorganisms, looking not only at the abundance of different microorganisms, but also at their genetic activity to see what they were doing. Two major patterns emerged in people who were more resilient to stress. The activity in their microbiome was linked to reduce inflammation and improve gut barrier integrity. Research has shown the patient with a variety of psychiatric conditions have a balance of gut microbacteria that includes more of certain pro-inflammatory bacteria and less of those with anti-inflammatory effects. Church notes that the barrier absorbs nutrients and keeps toxins and pathogens from entering the bloodstream. When that becomes more permeable or leaky and resulting in inflammatory acts as a stress signal to the brain, and that is not well. That all is not well. Microbes that talk to our nervous system. The new study finds that a quick expanding body of work on the brain gut connection. It was really excited. I was really excited to see this being done in quite a big human cohort, said Thomas Bestenison, a bioinformatician who studies the gut microbiome and mood at Amsterdam University Center. In recent years, he said scientists established that there is a strong bi-directional relationship between the gut and the brain. Much of that is based on preclinical lab studies using animal models as well as some human observational studies and in vitro work. All of this points roughly four ways that microbiomes communicate with the host. Along along with the immune system, there's vague nerves that function like a superhighway, running from the brain to the gut and directly interfacing with the microbiome. These gut microbiota also talk with the central nervous system by secreting neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. About 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut and about 50% of dopamine. In addition, the microbiome can produce short chain fatty acids that help maintain the gut barrier integrity and exert an anti inflammatory effect on the brain, among other things. Last year, Foster and her team found that a community of bacteria related to the production of these short chain fatty acids was reduced in people with depression who had el- el- elevated anxiety. In recent years, other observational studies may strengthen the evidence linking gut microbiome to mental health in humans. For example, large studies from researchers in the Netherlands have found microbiomes with less diversity of bacteria that can be predictive of depression, and that having more or less of certain bacteria linked in the synthesis of more or less of certain bacteria linked in the synthesis of neurotransmitters and short chain fatty acids, it may be key. Foster praised the UCLA study as novel because it took a full body view of the brain gut microbiome and its potential role in resilience. She notes that the analysis turned up a link between anxiety and the microbiome, which is already a well established area of research. More than a decade ago, Foster and others showed the link in the lab experiments with germ free mice and anxiety. In the content of text of stress, scientists have found short term exposure to stress can lead to alterations in the microbiome, and that changing the composition of the microbiome could make some mice more resilient to stress. Probiotic treatment for stress, not yet. There are growing efforts in this research into actionable treatments using diets, prebiotic, and probiotic supplements. But the researcher, whose name is hard to pronounce, says the complexity of the microbiome calls for different approach that's typically used in pharmaceutical development and tends to focus on finding single molecule of drugs. He said it's like trying to grow a forest in a desert by planting a few seeds. Obviously, it's not going to work because there is no supporting ecosystem. He says the microbiome field is still coming out of its infancy stage. We've established a link to microbiome gut brain axis. We got robust evidence. The next question we need to understand is, how does it work? How exactly it works. He notes there is some evidence from small human studies that have shown targeting the microbiome with certain diets, in one case, one rich in fermented foods, can reduce inflammation. Another trial, this one from the researcher whose name is hard to pronounce, and a team of the University of Cork found that the diet focuses on vegetables and foods known to influence microbiota could reduce perceived stress. While these efforts are completely valid, Foster argues the power of these studies is they can lead to the discovery of biomarkers that can help steer decisions of how to use existing treatment and who will be the best candidate. Can I measure something in your microbiome, maybe in your blood and maybe in your brain, to determine if you're depressed? She said, should I give you an antidepressant or a neurotransmitter or neurotransstimulation? Shall I do cognitive behavioral therapy or tell you to exercise? That could be the value of a holistic marker that can be measured in your microbiome, she says. She still thinks it could be an effective tool for clinical care within the next decade. For her part, Church envisions hypothetical one day leveraging this field of research to engineer the probiotic blend that could help mitigate stress, prevent an onset of some diseases. The biggest problem is that we need more studies that are actually going to test these human trials, she said. She acknowledges that there are sorts of unsubstantial claims, and there, when it comes to improving the microbiome, for she tells people the data isn't strong enough yet to know which treatment to try. There isn't really one that has been tested, she says. I say come back to me in a year and I'll tell you and I'll let you know. And that is the end of the article, and that is what I've been thinking about this morning. Thank you for watching. If you are interested in more videos by me, make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell, and even leave a comment if you want to. I now have a Patreon page, I have Facebook, I have Amazon Books. So, signing off. See y'all later.